Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
Slam me.
We can hold the mic up to that. No.
Give me 2 minutes.
And a lot of times when I have conversations,
So dumb.
Basically, like hearing people's stories.
It's either the adapter or the cord.
Heartbreaking. I'm so compassionate because I don't want people feeling that way.
It's probably the adapter because
Those things are made to die.
Because it's so
Or
oppressive. Like, oppression is a mindset. It's really a mindset. Like,
it's all right.
when I realized that, I was like, okay, I like the easiest way to come
Use the station, go back.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
MHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
I am HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
Already live?
Somebody compliment says, "Why you double down?"
Oh, yes, Joey. Yeah.
Give me the heads up.
Well, yeah, so Lala is his mom.
Oh.
But I have his mom.
Okay.
So she's not working.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Lala.
This is what, the third year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good one.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Hey, let's bring the energy because this weekend has been awesome. Y'all give yourself a minute. Yeah, so definitely want to thank X Art Park for being such gracious hosts. Want to thank the amazing, talented organizers as well. Miss Sabrina Fagan is right here, one of the organizers. Give it up. Miss Jones. We got J. Middleton. So you got from Beyond Fitness, Cheap and Classy Image Consulting, 101 Jams. Did such an amazing job. So I'm Charles Lewis. I'm In My Humble Opinion talk show we have every Sunday on 101 Jams, and we stream worldwide, WBAI. Part of the Cville Inclusive Media Project, along with my partners at Charlottesville Tomorrow, where Angelique Shaw is the CEO, as well as Vinegar Hill, where the CEO is Brother Sarad Davenport. Give it up for Sarad. And so we're so delighted to be able to share with everybody today the whole inclusive media idea and concept of first person. We have an initiative we're going to talk about. We have a couple of our guests, their personal Charlottesville stories, as well as to the first person podcast. So we're going to talk about all of that today, the importance of people of color, Black people, being represented properly within media and different forms of journalism, right? So that's what the Charlottesville Inclusive Media Project is all about. And also to show love, you're also going to be able to conversate and do a little Q&A as well with the panel that we're going to bring up right after Sarad, gives you a little more background in CIN and how everybody can be involved and contribute. So I'm just delighted that we have none other than Charlie Burton with us. Give it up for Charlie Burton. Charlie speaks. So Charlie is a trans activist and lover of words, and a Charlottesville native and a storyteller. You can find out more about him at charliespeaks.com. Also have Marley Michelle. Marley is a travel destination photographer, artist, commercial photographer. And she's also geeky. That's probably number one, right? Geeky. That's number one, right? So y'all can check out Marley's portfolio. She tells her stories through photography, right? We have June Bates. Gina back from Let's Talk, addressing life issues to encourage and empower others by sharing the gospel of Christ through personal testimonies, experiences, and expert insight. My brother Ahmad Rashad Hawkins. Y'all can find him at I Am Ball Hawk. He's also a founder of the Prolific Run Crew, a former NFL All-Pro, host of the Ball Hawk Show podcast, and a UVA football analyst.
And NFL.
That's right. He also was an NFL vet. And last but not least, my brother E. Jones. You know from E. Jones, he's an actor, content creator, radio personality. You can find him on Fresh Start Mondays from 9 to 11 on WTJU. He's a podcast host called Who Are You Really Podcast, and basketball commentator for the Thompson League. And shout out to the Thompson League. Their championship game is tonight, by the way. If y'all can make it out there to Thompson Park. So we are not a monolith. Obviously, we have very diversified ways of representing ourselves and telling our stories. That's why it's so important, and I'm so glad to have such a variety of the Black diaspora here in many ways that we have show our experiences and tell our stories. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into a little more, but I'm gonna kick it over to Sarad to bring down a little more how CIM was founded and what we're all about. So give it up for Sarad there.
Thank you, Charles. Charles, we've been like on tour for the last 6 months. DC, Texas, everything, giving us presentation about how Charlottesville Inclusive Media Project came to be. But yeah, we've been on the road. But one of the big things that, the reason why this came about is that we were dissatisfied, and we found that the public was very much dissatisfied around how people of color were presented in local media broadly. So we figured, instead of complaining about it, we did complain, but we said we were going to do something. So that's kind of the origins of it. And we wanted to be able to control our own narrative and project our own narrative. And we partnered up with some folks along the way that have, that's much better, because I was like, I'm about to keep a hot 16, man. Oh, reverb on that. But yeah, so we came together to present a more inclusive social narrative in Central Virginia. So that's what we're up to, and we wanted to make sure we work on ourselves on what the definition of that word inclusive means. So you'll see in some of the things that we do, like we're exploring some of the boundaries. We got some great folks in the community that were already doing media, like Ball Hawk and Eric E. Jones and others from Let's Talk Show. They were already doing media, and we thought it was important for us to continue to broaden the tent of whose voices are present and lifted up. And so that's kind of why we're here today. A little bit about the Charlottesville Inclusive Media Project. Charles talked about it a little bit. It started out as Vinegar Hill Magazine, Charlottesville Tomorrow, and IMHO radio show, which is 103 Jams. And it started out kind of rough, because we were like, man, we don't trust these people. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how we were. Not Charles, but like Charlottesville Tomorrow, which was what we call legacy media, or traditionally white-led media. We like, we don't need them, we good. So, and it took years for that partnership to kind of get to the place where we were like, all right, we have developed some trust. And there were, bumps in the road along the way, but we had to, like, sometimes how you gotta have those meetings. You're like, we need to talk about this, because we don't like the way that came across and represented our community. We needed to talk about that. And what we found through that relationship is that they were willing to listen and change and respond. It was like, we got a trusted relationship, and we can call out each other or call in each other when something comes up. And not everybody's with that. Some people want to shy away, they want to run away from it. And we found that Charlottesville Tomorrow was really willing to get in and have those tough conversations and build that trust. So we began to work on it. And we began to change all of our news operations and our narrative operations. I mentioned, who we are, Charlottesville Tomorrow, and some of the things that they needed. They needed a more diverse readership, right? For some of these legacy media organizations, they seemingly cater to a certain audience, but they wanted to be able to reach a broader audience that was more diverse. He was like, I bet we can help you with that. And so what we needed was audience growth. We need our audience to grow, we need our narrative to go out and be bigger, right? And they got that. So this is how we work together. And IMHO, same thing. Audience growth, right? So we have this mutually beneficial relationship, and we have a bigger audience. So in and of ourselves, we have like, I don't know, what's your Nielsen ratings like? How many people y'all get every weekend on the show?
I mean, like on average, 1,500.
1,500 people, right? And then we have on our list, our email list now about 5,000. They got about 8 to 10,000. So if you put it all together, then you start talking 20, 30,000 as you continue to grow per week, right? But if you work by yourself, then you just have your little group, but you've transformed it into something that could be at most 5K on your own or 1,500, and you turn it into something 20, 30,000 K people every week, right? So you begin to grow. And so we got noticed for some of that work. And we were doing the real trusted relationship work, and here come Facebook, right? So we had this opportunity to get this grant from Facebook from the, it's called the Institute of Nonprofit News. And it was a Facebook grant. They're Meta now, of course. But we did, some of you may remember, we did this series called Determined. It was based on the social determinants of health. We had Jordy Yeager and some others come in, and Facebook was like, yeah, we'll put some bread on that. And so it helps them because they grow their audience, they get diverse, but we get back off as infrastructure, because that's what a lot of Black businesses, we never have to start our capital, right? We trying to build something and we don't got nothing to build with, right? I'm like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you don't got no boots. So we like, y'all give us some boots and we'll be good, right? So that's the whole thing that we're making the argument. But what Facebook and others want to make sure is that we have an authentic leadership role in it. And if we have a real leadership role in it, then they like that, because some people, it's not real. It's like a fake. It's like they use your image to present like your real partners, but you don't really have any decision making. It's not a real authentic partnership. So they were really trying to detect that. And so, you know, we got Facebook, we did that, and then comes Google, right? A lot of people don't even know some of these things that happen. So Google came through and they checked us out too. They actually interviewed us, and they didn't believe it was true. They were like, man, it's gotta be fake, right? And so they actually interviewed us and checked it out, and you know, and the reason why they know it's real because we like arguing with each other on the call. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? They're really willing to go through the struggles together to get to some solutions and some good products together. So Google came, and we ain't got no more money, so don't think we still got money, wow. But we were able, and hopefully you've been able to see some of the transformations of our media organization, our publication. We reinvested, right? We said, all right, bring up the quality of your publication, like our printing, the magazines, our photography. We pay our writers. Like people used to volunteer to write for us, but if you write for us now, you don't get a check. That's right. So we invest that money back into the community. If you go through photography for Vinegar Hill magazine, you don't get a check. Anybody got a check out there on Vinegar Hill? You know what I'm saying? So right. So, but that's what we're supposed to do. So it's a service to the community, because even when we get this, you know, these resources and things like that to expand, it's really to put back in the community, right? To grow, because it's a community effort. And not only that, but we've been able to like pay talent. Like when we do the podcast, which I'll talk about a little bit, you know, we're paying talent. Because one of the things that Angelique, who's not here today, always says is that like, we always try to, you know, be cheap about things, right? And like, we gotta start recognizing that you have to pay people their worth, right? And if you can't pay people their worth, you need to put yourself in a position where you can, right? And we need to talk to these different funders and things like that, people who are supporting us, and like, you know, we don't want to like do something halfway. We want to do it the right way. We want to pay people right, because people deserve it, because they're giving up their talent. So that's just kind of the operation that we've tried to build collectively and working through the tension. And it's tight at times, like right now, I don't know about over there at the radio station, the magazine, you know, we have our tight times, ebbs and flow where it's slow, but we steady and understand it's not all about us. It's about us all together and the community all together. So that's been our ethos. And we won some awards along the way. You see on the screen. So for the Determined series for the Virginia Press Association, we won like first place in multimedia report, first place in illustrations, online digital, best in show for illustration. So we, you know, work with the muralists. So we're like stacking up awards around the state, around the country. Like I said, we've been on tour. I went and presented at the American Presses Institute in Texas in the spring. Charles, myself, and Angela were at the Collaborative Journalism Summit in DC. What was that, June? So like the things that we're doing and that you all are participating in is really taking not only a national, people are noticing nationally and taking our model and using it, but also internationally, because for Google, we were selected as the North American representative. So what that means is that it's a global thing. It's not just a local thing, you know what I mean? Or even a domestic thing. It's an international thing that's happening around telling us a truer story about who we are, right? Because historically, not only have people of color suffer from a not having a true story of who we are, but everybody else has too. So they have this perception of what America is, and it's not really true. And we see it playing out, you know, all over the country, like in Florida and all this stuff. But we have decided we're gonna have a truer narrative about who we are and what's going on in our community. So that's part of the work that we're doing. I'm gonna pitch it back to Charles so we can get ready to show you some of our work that we've done, some of our work projects. And Charles, I don't know if you want to set up the.
Yeah. So I have a saying that we taking Cville. Sorry, taking this. Yeah, so I have a saying on the radio that we're taking Cville to the Royal, bringing the Royal to Cville, right? And I really mean that because what we're about to show you is the first person series. And again, this is something that was started to where anybody can submit their story, whatever their first person Charlottesville story is. And then some of those we turn into podcasts as well. And these are pieces that really highlight, because one thing we didn't mention, we really were also spiraled into existence after August 12th. And this being that anniversary weekend, it adds even more significance, right? And so for us to be able to take Charlie's stories, Marley's stories, India Sims, Antoine Brinson, you know, the list goes on, and for people to be like, oh, that's what Black people do in Charlottesville. Like that's the work y'all putting in. You know, it's really getting recognition. You know, and so there's so many success stories on how we try to better represent ourselves. So that's sort of the backdrop of first person Cville. And for those who haven't heard it, you can go on any of our sites to get to the link. I just want to share these quick sound bites with y'all so y'all get an idea of the podcast versions that come from some of the written pieces. So first I'm going to start with Charlie's. So you are a trans man.
Yes.
You are also a Black man.
I'm also a Black man, yeah.
So how does one inform the other?
I'll tell the simple story that I was at work one day and I got on the elevator and there were two white women that moved over to the other end of the elevator and I couldn't understand why, because all I was thinking was Charlie trans man. So the first thing that comes to my head was, why are they moving over to the other end? This is just me. I'm in AA, and I called my sponsor, and I had a conversation with my sponsor at 11, and she said, congratulations, you're now a part of the Black man side of white people will look at you and see Black man, not trans man. And so that whole contrast of being able to move towards a trans advocate and also know that the world doesn't see me as trans advocate 24/7, they see Charlie as a Black man.
Give it up for Charlie. Very personal story. And so next I'm going to play Marley's sound bite. Let me show this house at the beginning.
And a lot of times when I have conversations with people just in Charlottesville, like I said, hearing people's stories, it's so heartbreaking. I'm so compassionate because I don't want people feeling that way. Like, I don't want black people here to feel like they can't thrive or they can't succeed because it's so oppressing. And it's like, oppression is a mindset. For real. It's really a mindset. Like, when I realized that, I was like, okay, I feel like the easiest way to help people is art.
Give it up for Marvin. Kick it back over to this. Okay. Kick it back to Soraya real quick. All right, just to wrap up our part of the presentation before we start to bring up others is, what we've seen ripple effects. We watch it. I know from Vinegar Hill, what we see is we feel like we're okay with being a launching pad for folks who may not be noticed, right? And we look for folks that may not be noticed, and so that we can put them in the conversation with some of maybe the other media organizations, right? Because a lot of times we are what I say mining for genius. So we are looking for genius that other people have no idea about, and then we find it and we lift it up and put it on our platform. And I don't have no problem when they go to bigger platforms because that's what we want to happen, right? And so when they go to a bigger platform, but it used to be like, some of y'all remember DJ Clue mixtapes. I'm aging myself, and some of y'all, they used to say, what you heard first, right? So we try to mix that in. It's like we try to be the first to find genius, and then and some people come after they've already been out and then come to through our media outlets. But we believe that we're having ripple effects. We know it's true that especially locally, media organizations have taken notice to what we've done, and they are responding. And you can look at, I'm not going to call names of some of these, newspapers, media organizations, but you can see the shift that is happening. And we feel like we don't have any quantitative evidence about, how it's happening, but we believe that we've had an effect on the whole media landscape, not only here, but as we're going on tour around the country and talking about what we're doing, we feel like it's happening in other places too. So we believe in the ripple effects that are happening as a result of our work, and we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep innovating, and we might seem small, but we want to continue to do great work and do quality work and focus on quality, innovation, and polish, so that we can impact a larger landscape. We don't have to be the biggest, but we can work on our quality so that we can continue to affect the biggest and affect lives, all of our lives. So, that's kind of what we're up to. A lot of people may not know, but you all here today, glad you all got to kind of peek under the cover of some of the work that we've been doing collaboratively and how we've been making a name for. And you all have been helping us to reframe Charlottesville, the narrative of Charlottesville, in a more inclusive way, not only for here, but for the rest of the country. So thank you very much. And then I'm going to turn it back to Charles, and we're going to start bringing some folks up to have a discussion. Yes, indeed. Like, nothing makes me more proud than when someone says, I read the article in Vinegar Hill, or I listened to your radio show, how can I get in touch with such and such? Or like, I love that cause that they, we're speaking about, well, how can I support? Because that's what it's about, is like Soraya said, shining that light. And so that's why it gives me great pleasure to invite the panelists up. And if it's cool, I think we can get everybody up. Yes, the panelists up because, thanks to Sabrina as well for bringing June and her Let's Talk show, to my attention as well, because folks who are doing this kind of work, I'm so proud of, and we got to be able to figure out how to support each other more to make sure that when people hear about Charlottesville, they Google Charlottesville, the stuff that we want told to the world, the stories that we want is what's coming up, and not anybody else's narrative. All right, so without further ado, June Bates from Let's Talk, you come on up. Charlie Bird from Charlie Speaks. The Real E. Jones, come on up. Marley Michelle, come on up. Ahmad Ball Hawk Hawkins, come on up. Shout out to Lila Jones in the building, one of the organizers that I mentioned at the beginning, who put on this great weekend. Cloud, I know you're tired, but I don't want it to end. Sabrina, we got. Yeah. So, we're gonna pass the mic. We got 3 mics. You got the facts around. Can you give me that cord? Get that microphone plug in.
So I can move this.
Yeah, we can move this.
Slide that. Yep. Thank you, sir.
There we go. We got 3 mics, so nobody can be shy. You want me? I know a lot of people up here like to talk. So the first question that we're going to ask, and this is something. What we're going to do, we got a kickoff question. Then we have a couple, in the coffers as well. But we want this to be interactive. So everybody sitting at the bar, at the tables, the stools, everywhere. We want everybody to, look at these folks, their expertise, and really want to know about, the backstories and what it is that inspires them, so that everybody here can feel like they're a part of, the representation in the media. Whatever neighborhood you're living in, whatever your family background is, we want the proper representation of when somebody reports on Charlottesville, Virginia, right? So the first question that we had is, was derived out of the whole soul of Cville panel idea, which is, why is Black representation so important in media, right? Why is Black representation so important in media, us being included? And, you all can answer that however you want. You can definitely do it from the perspective of, of live reporting on sports and being a part of things like Council League. Why is that so important to do, and so on and so forth with everybody's expertise?
Reverend, you go first.
My name is Eric Jones. I go by E. Jones. I think it's why it's so important, because a lot of times other people tell our stories. Other people speak for us. Other people represent us. Sometimes that's on our being our fault, but sometimes it's, how the universe works. So I think we have to do a better job at it. We got to come together more collectively, because we're not a unit. We're not, together as other races are. You look and you see Asian, you see, here's an example. They're together. They may be separate here and there and have disagreements, but I think we're one of the races that we have a hard time of coming together and, representing us as a whole. So I think we got to do a better job together.
Okay, good afternoon. So I'm June Bates, and I have a talk show with my girlfriends, Sharika Turner and Nicole Dickerson. It's called Let's Talk, and it airs on CPA TV, so Charlottesville Public Access TV, Channel 13. And so in 2021, after the pandemic, during the pandemic, we were like, wow, we have such great conversations with our group of girlfriends. We're like, man, I know people have the same questions we have, talk about the same things we talk about. Why don't we do a TV show together? And so that was the genesis of how we started our show. And so we're all neighbors of Charlottesville, and so I think it's important because, growing up, I never saw anyone who looked like us telling stories that affected our community. So I do believe that sharing our story from our perspective is key. And not only that, putting information that applies to everyone, regardless of your social demographic, your background, wherever you came from, your race, your culture, the things that we talk about, can apply to anyone. So whether it's how to buy your first home, or get your credit straight, or reaching out to the differently challenged community, we just want to connect with everyone because everyone has a story that's worth being heard.
Hey everybody, my name is Charlie Burton. I was born and raised the big town north of Arlington, about 12 miles south of here. So I'm going to really outdate myself. I'm probably older than anyone here. I'm 63, so in the 60s, in my household, before you even cracked open the Daily Progress, there was a black newspaper called the Tribune. And my parents had Me and my other two siblings, we were made to read that tribute from page to page. My mother said it was important that we get the black news first and then we read the white news later. And so when this opportunity came up, it flashed back to me that here we go. Now Charlottesville again the black community is represented again in media. And so it was so important for me to be able to tell my story, because not only am I a black man living here in Charlottesville, but I'm also a black trans man who has been fired from jobs because they found out here in Charlottesville that I was trans. Not that I was black, that I was trans. And so when Charles and I had this opportunity and I wrote my story, I felt it was so important that not only the white world sees this trans man, but also the black world in Charlottesville. Because I can tell you, it has not been easy maneuvering here, transitioning in my own hometown. It has not been easy. But there have been many times that I felt maybe it would be best to move. And then I heard my mother's voice saying, read that newspaper because you need to learn about the black media. And so I felt like it was important for me to teach black media who I am.
My name is Wally Michelle. I think I'm the only person up here on this panel that is not from Charlottesville, Virginia, or the area. Oh my God. I'm sorry. But I'm from Georgetown, South Carolina, and I'm Gullah Geechee. That's my culture in South Carolina. And I come from, in my culture within itself, we are our own media. And so growing up, I only saw black media within community, and that's why coming to Charlottesville to a predominantly white community, I understand the people who are from here, their stories, and I understand why for them it's important to see themselves, because I had a representation even though I was in a majority black space. And so it's important for black media to be represented the way it should. Like Eric E said, like our narratives and our stories, it gives us the opportunity to control it, and it's a language. It helps with language barriers as well when communicating with not just within black community, but to white people, how we're presented. It's always the angry black man, angry black woman representation when it comes to us in media in a lot of ways. And I feel like it's done because we're so misunderstood because of language barriers. And I don't feel like we as black people should have to change our language to make other people comfortable. When it comes to media, that's why controlling our narratives are so important. And growing up in a majority black community and always seeing myself and coming to a space where I don't, that's why I do photography, that's why I travel the world and learn blackness from not just a black American perspective, but a cultural perspective, because, my motto in my art is, I'm not just a photographer, I'm a storyteller, and 95% of Gullah Geechee people are, we preserve our stories, our heritage, and it's done to pass down to people who's coming after us, so we don't live in the moment or for what's going on in the reality right now, we live to preserve for the future, and I feel like that's why black media is so important.
All right, give it up for the felines though. Them Jones fire.
Oh, them Jones fire.
All right, my name is Lamar Hawkins. I'm from Hampton, Virginia. And now I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm looking at her. Y'all can't see, but I'm looking right at her. And she thought she was by herself. No. Well, yeah, Charlottesville's been my home since 2008. I went to college here at UVA from 97 to 2000. My wife is originally from Charlottesville, so I guess she got me there, right? All right. But I got into media because of, similar to what each panelist stated, controlling the narrative. And once I made a decision that I wanted to transition from sports to sports entertainment, I wanted to work with the University of Virginia for the football team. And my mindset was, they never had anybody like me with a microphone. So I'm gonna break down the barrier. Yes, and I can articulate myself and I can code switch, but I can still be me. And I'm gonna carve my niche. And I'm gonna force them to come to me. Because initially, I couldn't get in that door because of the way that I carry myself and the way that I broke down the game. Even though X's and O's seem so simple, how you present it means a lot. So I started my own podcast, and through my journey on Facebook and creating a following, that's in today's day and age. If you want a company to pay attention to you, get these followers. Step out on faith, create your lane, and master that lane. And major salute to Damian Banks, because BCBA, he on a dare, gave me the microphone, said, talk about the game, while the game's going on. We did MC, and that was in 2015, and the rest is history. Now I'm just getting photographers' ways, because they don't understand that's mine. You know, you better get in when you fit in with that camera, you know. But no, I'm just playing. That's basically it, man. Show the narrative. Don't be afraid to utilize your voice. Learn how to read the room, but at the same time, be true to yourself. And when you're true to yourself and you embrace others and you realize everybody's not competition, embrace everybody. Like, it's a lane for all of us. We gotta stop thinking they're competition and looking at their views and how can I take views from them. We can all get views. You know, if he's going on from 9 to 11, I'm going from 12 to 1. And I'm gonna ask him, can I come on the show as well? And I'm gonna say, can you come on my show? And I think the more we create this fist, the easier it's for us to try and further we can try.
Thank you. Give it up for the panelists for kicking it off. So before Saran and I go any further, what's on your hearts, what's on your minds right now? I want to give it to the audience to make sure there's supple time for that. Any questions or comments for any of the panelists? Yes, indeed.
That's probably going got going.
Hello. Thanks so much for being here today and joining us for our first panel discussion for the Solar Cville. We appreciate all of you being here. Again, my name is Cville Jones, and I'm one of the organizers for Solar Cville. I have dabbled in writing. I am in marketing by education. I have an MBA in marketing, and I work a lot with public relations. My question for you, because I also am not from Charlottesville, I'm here with you, Marley. I'm from Arizona, but I have struggled myself with getting my own narrative, not just my narrative, but just the narrative for Black culture in general, out there in general, in my voice, like you said. I don't like to code switch. I've done it for too long, and I said I'm not in the business of making myself palatable for anybody else. But have you found that it is challenging when you're not from here to be able to do that and get that unity and the support that you want, because it's already difficult when you have other, when you have other challenges, but to also have our community to back you. Have you found that challenging, specifically Marley, because I know with Go Reach, you guys communicate a little differently.
Yeah.
What is your experience been?
So, like, when I first moved here, I had no idea that I had a dialect. Like, you can't hear it now because I've been here so long.
We can
but
hear
I do. But I really can't hear it. But when I first moved here, people, I already knew that I was different because people heard a dialect, but people thought I was Jamaican. And honestly, it wasn't just white people. At first, it seemed a little racist to be asked that because of my lives, but then Black people started asking me too. And that's when I even was able to identify as that, okay, I'm Gullah Geechee. I lived in it so much. So when you move from all you know to something that you don't, I think the challenging part here was for me is diving into community. I feel like a lot of times we as Black people, we move to an area and we don't get to learn community. And so that's something that I really actually did. Like, I just had to do the groundwork, just meeting people, networking. I built a platform here because my video went viral, and that's what really brought the Black community to me. I couldn't even find a Black community like that for real. And when I did, that's when I realized, whoa, Black people are different. And the mentalities are different. Like I grew up in a rural country area, residential area, where all we do is stick together. I don't know what it's like how he said, I'm on your show today, you on mine tomorrow. That's how I came up. I cut your grass today, you cut mine next week. Like all of these, I come from a very community oriented background, and moving here and not seeing that, yes, that was very challenging, and it does kind of get you lost within yourself. Because you're like, okay, I'm not used to Black people, not sticking together. I'm not used to, getting up and seeing in the front of the newspaper every morning that somebody Black died to gun violence. Like that was never my reality growing up. And coming to a space here, like, and reading these stories, like he said, a lot of these stories when I would read them were from white people's perspective of our trauma in the Black community in Charlottesville. So it wasn't until I moved and saw Blackness from a different perspective, and I was just like, the hardest thing you will ever have to do in this community is try to convince Black people that they are not oppressed. And that has been my biggest challenge here, because they truly do not believe it, because it's so overly saturated with whiteness. Narratives, perspectives, our events, like a lot of Black spaces are filled in, the room with Black people, but we are still outnumbered by white people. I'm not used to that, I'm not used to going to a Juneteenth event and seeing white people, and people would really like, I'm just being real, like I'm not used to that, like I don't. And we had some Ghanaians even coming from Ghana a couple of weeks ago who also spoke on going to the African festival and questioned like why were white people there, and I told them like when I ask questions like that, people, look at me like I'm crazy, but it's honest, the truth. Like I really truly want to understand. Like I get community and everything, but for people who've never been in spaces where white people are a majority, we don't know how to communicate and understand like why they're here. So it's challenging a lot when it's really oversaturated with whiteness. But you have to really stay grounded. Like I've learned that like you can't just give up. That's why I started photography. Like I love singing, but photography has really became a platform for me to tell other people's stories. Like it's just not me here versus back home where it's just us, Gullah Geechee. Like here, it's community, and I feel like what you're doing, even with Solar Cville, like I've never seen something like this is your third year, and it's like, whoa, it got bigger, And so these things, I feel like the community, people who are here, they need as well, and I'm glad that we are able to like have these conversations with people who are Black and from Charlottesville, because Sarad and I always talk about it all the time. I tell them, Sarad, it's hard for me as a Black person living here. I can't talk how I want to talk because code switching, people take it the wrong way, like they take it, like when I say certain things, people say I hate white people. That's not what I'm saying though, like I'm just being authority of what I'm saying based off of my real reality. So you have to, as Black people, I wish, even if you're not from here, or if you are from here, Black people should use those moments to converse and communicate to understand our background so that we can thrive together and not against each other.
Thank you. Give it up for Marley, y'all. And did anybody else want to speak on the code switching part? Because I think that safe space is like just so important, right? Is like, if anybody wants to speak on how they feel more comfortable like when they're, when they're on the mic or behind the camera. If anybody, is that
to talk about post a bit?
Yeah.
Is that, I know what we try to do is not try to shape people's voice. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times people are trying to put you in, like I was an English minor. So people don't like me when I get a red pen in my hand. My mom's over there, she'll tell you. My daughter mad at me now. So I understand the English language to come. I mean, I interned with the New York Times as an undergraduate. Like, you don't know that either, right? And I worked in the communications department. So I mastered the, English language. I know how to do it. I can talk like this all the time if you like me. But it takes, I think we're in a stage now where you don't have to, you shouldn't have to, and to convey meaning, you shouldn't have to shape yourself into something that you're not, and people understand exactly what you mean, right? And so like, you need to, so what I know through our media publication, we say, we'll edit it if it's like a major error, but we want people to be able to speak in their own voice, to be able to convey meaning, because you take something out of it when you try to when you constrict people. You take something, when you take some of the texture out of it, you take something away from the meaning, right? So like, we try to make it freer, and I think that's what I talk about ripple effects, is that we're noticing that other people are understanding that you don't have to impose culture on others that's not inclusive, to impose culture and allow people to be freely themselves, right? And then you're gonna have a more powerful product. You're gonna have a better impact, and they're gonna be able to reach, because when the people hear it, they'll be like, oh, I know that sound, right?
You know what I'm saying? He's saying is communication in general. Because for those that don't know, like Marley's first person story came out of her photography. So it wasn't like it was just a written piece. It was how she tells stories through photography. Like so that's deep to me, because like there's many styles of communication, right? And especially we from the African diaspora, like when it comes to styles of communication, it vastly varies, right?
Now, let me say something. I want to say one thing. Now, just because there's nothing wrong, I don't want y'all to get it twisted, they're gonna mess me up. Just because you enunciate and you articulate, there's nothing wrong with that also. I don't want y'all to get it twisted to say that I'm saying that. What I'm saying is that there are multiple ways to convey meaning, and I'm saying that we need to have it open for more and not less. Right. So if you enunciate, you articulate, I ain't mad at you, that's good, because then people come there talking white. I don't believe in that either. I don't believe in that kind of, constriction either, where we impose that on people also. So I think just be yourself.
Yeah, speak your truth. That's what it's about. So we had a question that we want to kind of close things on, but before we do that, I want to make sure we get all the audience comments questions. Yeah, if you would mind coming up so we can hear you to the mic. It's pretty long.
I just had a quick question for advice to young people who want to get into media. Do you recommend that they go into the established media and try to change the narrative, try to work with the people there, sort of like what Ahmad is doing, and working with traditional sports, but he has his own voice? Or create your own channel, whether it's social media, podcast, whatever it may be, and try to build your own audience through that? What sort of guidance do you have?
I think, because from the age of 14, I knew I always wanted to do something in entertainment, whether it was media or whatever. And I took that route, and I think it's good. I mean, I would tell the younger generation to try to do both if possible. Because right now, the way the media is going, it's not mainstream as far as you going to school, you're doing it that way. You have people that are on social media that are 15, 16 years old making 7, 8 figures. So if you have the opportunity and you have the capital and you have the resources, because a lot of young teens growing up, they have resources that we didn't have. So if you have those resources, you don't need to necessarily go the traditional route. So I think if you have the opportunity to do the traditional route, yes. But if you already have the capital, you have all those things in place, go for it.
Thank you. Was there another question for the audience? Is somebody else have something, Jim? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so I'm not on social media per se, I don't have Facebook, but I know enough about life in general that, our stories need to be shared. And so I have, people in my life who are mentors, right? So some of you may know Pastor Lehman Bates of Ebenezer. He had a show called Breaking the Chains with his uncle and Andrea Copeland. And they talked about some real life issues related specifically to the Black community, conversations that were never had before. And so having people like that in your space who can give you insight, give you some guidance about the way you should, share their experiences, because we all have a path, whether it's I'm on TV, you're on radio, you're doing a podcast, follow your path and don't try to be like the person next to you, but share your story because it matters. You know, we can all learn from each other, and I think in our communities too often we try to contain that. We need to share this because there's a whole nother generation of, you know, young people coming up who need to hear the stories from previous generations and things that have affected us. So whatever route, you know, life takes you, you know, spread that love.
Now, I agree with that. So, E. Jones hit on a great point. It's about the resources. And since I started, the game has evolved. Like when I first started, I started out as a writer for thesafer.com. Chris Wright, while I was still playing in the Ring Football League, had me write for my own personal column for UVA football. And then I was on the Jerry Miller Show. Then I did the Best Seat in the House with Jay James as an analyst, just a guest. And once I got on that 2.7 Kiss FM, when they hired me, I actually finally got a paycheck for doing something in the media. I remember my first week, I was doing the traditional style of sports media. And I was kind of trash can juice. I was really bad. I remember Facebook group was killing me, like destroying me, like letting me have that. And instead of me being very defensive and letting my ego get the best of me, I realized like, if I'm gonna fail at being myself. So that I remember that Friday is where Petty Hawk was created, my alter ego. Essentially, Petty Hawk is me code switching to what my friends see when I talk sports. It's some slang, it's some disrespect, it's a lot of jokes, but I can still articulate the game to you like guys on TV, but it just sounds different. Because that's what my audience was here in Charlottesville. The people who saw me on Facebook didn't see me when I was on that radio show. So it was all about me feeding my organic fan base and being true to myself, but at the same time realizing I could go to the traditional route because I never limited my brand. So it's all about the individual. You know, you can stay true to yourself. It's like being an independent MC. You get love selling CDs out the trunk, and you can be that local legend. Or you can say, hey, I'm gonna still be this local legend, but I'm gonna branch out and get this conglomerate to jump on board of my brand, and I still don't have to change myself. But I could make some tweaks here and there.
I want to speak to that. I think Charlie wants to say something too. This is, I think, start where you are, right? Number one, I'll tell you a quick story about how I got into, you know, how I got into my internship. I started a newsletter on campus, like a cultural newsletter on campus, and I taught myself to code in the 90s. So I built a website to go along with the newsletter in the 90s, and I taught myself to code, right? And then I took that package to my interview with the New York Times. They hired me on the spot in the night, right? So I was 19 years old, you know what I'm saying? But I was, start where you are, your initiative, your creativity. You never know what that could do to open the door for you. And you do need to go into some bigger establishments because they got resources and tools that you don't have. And then you can master using those tools, and then you go back and bring it back to the community after you master it in a larger system. But start where you are first. That would be my little answer to that.
Here's the reality. For 50 years, this town, educational system, convinced me that I didn't have a voice. It also convinced me that I wasn't smart enough to go past high school. I'm not bragging. Next year I walk across the stage at Morehouse College. Yeah. Okay. So people who had taught me and said that I couldn't, and a lot of that I believe because in Charlottesville there was no media of people who looked like me. There weren't black photographers, but black female photographers. There were no black photographers that I know of, except for the gentleman that would take pictures with the Polaroid and put it on the tribute. You know, and so as I started moving through life, I felt smothered in this town. The reality of this town is UVA kills us. It's a black community. If a black community who has been brought up here, you're either down on the tracks at Garrett Street or you're here at UVA. And everybody who's in the middle doesn't count. And so we get a breather who they even they and we get our town back. And then we can feel comfortable going in some spaces that if we walk in those spaces normally, we would be looked down upon. Now, that might be different now, but I can tell you that's the way it was when I was growing up. And then me growing up, I wasn't trans. I was this big, black, butch lesbian. I didn't see anybody look like me then. And so I'm smothered even more. And then, you know, I'm either gonna blow my brains out or transition. Thank God I chose the transition route. And then I still don't see anybody like me. But then I started getting this small indication that if I can't find the voice, I got to be the voice. And so I started being the voice. I started stepping out. And I think that's what all we see right here on this panel, people who decided, you know what, I've got this niche, I've got this thing that I gotta do, and I'm gonna step out on faith and do whatever I need to do and hope that this area supports me.
Real quick, I also wanted to, I wanted to piggyback on the question with the kids. Like, for me, I moved to Charlottesville when I was 23, and I had no plan. I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do. I just quit college because I didn't like school, it wasn't for me. And I don't want kids to feel like they shouldn't go to school. Like, if you want to go to school, go to school. Do experience it, at least try to experience college, but it really wasn't for me. And so I moved here. My mom wanted me to come here and just try something different. And my singing is what really got me a platform for myself, because I asked Cville for some free tickets. And after that, like, I didn't do it the traditional way after I realized I was really creative. So I feel like for a lot of kids who do want to get into media, I do want them to be encouraged to know, like, it's not just about media, it's about being creative. It's about how you create your narrative, how you create what you want to put out to the world. And like, just going for it, like, you just gotta have faith in yourself for real, because a lot of times, like, these new generation kids, like, they pick up differently now. So it's like, y'all have more resources than we did, like I did. And I really didn't have a lot of resources until I came to Charlottesville. And if it weren't for my video going viral, there wouldn't have been a lot of things that I would have been able to learn in Charlottesville when it comes to resources in media. Like, when I started photography in 2019, and 2020, I was identified as a photojournalist, and I didn't even know what that was. So I had to Google it and see, well, what's a photojournalist, you know? But it's still taking the initiative to go learn on your own what something is, to see what people are identifying you as. And so I have no degree, but like Samara said, a lot of people don't believe times. Like, I've been featured in the New York Times, the Associated Press, like Vinegar Hill. Like, my work isn't just local, it's all in what you believe in yourself to push it for the world to see. And that has really, media has really helped bring people to me to show other people's stories. Like, my No We Are Not Oppressed series, like, I want to travel around the world and show people blackness from a liberating way. So for any kid, like, if you just want to take that risk, just do it and learn as you go, trial and error. Like, it works. I would rather mess up to correct myself than to just be handed an opportunity to me that I already know how to do and fulfill. Like, so let what you do in your art be challenging at all times as well.
We have audience questions.
So I have three points to make. My name is Kofi Brinkley. I've been here for about 4.5 years or so, in and out of the city for the last 12 years or so. First thing is, I like those shoes. I like those shoes.
Wait, you should come to the top.
I'm not talking to you.
Oh.
I
have a foot out.
Yeah. I like those shoes. Second, I'm a Morehouse man, so you know what I mean. Like you're a man of Morehouse at the moment. You know what I mean. We'll see if you become a Morehouse man, but we do appreciate the effort. You know what I mean. And the last thing is, you know, in media in Charlottesville, I do appreciate the fact that we even have this panel, and I'm interested to see how this goes forward. There was something else that I wanted to say that I forgot, honestly. But that being said, I'm glad that I was able to come here to see this, because it's motivated me. You know, we've met before, and I have a camera, but I haven't been out here doing the things that I think I need to do to get this further over the road. This is the last thing. The last thing was, over the weekend, we've had a really significant event. I know a few people on the panel have podcasts. So I was gonna wonder if anybody had plans to take an interview with that white Fulton chair. Yeah, well, if you do, let me know, because I wanna see that. All right, that's the content I wanna see.
I'll keep you in mind.
Appreciate that.
See that you on the way. Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
So, yeah, so what we wanted to close with, do we have time? Okay.
What was that?
White Fulton chair. Yeah, the chair. The chair needs to be interviewed.
Google it, man. Google it.
Google it, man.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Is this on? I just want to say, if it's of any support to anyone, I'm a producer at the local Charlottesville public access station, and we produce a couple of trainees to help us produce, and we specifically want producers of color because those are the folks that we like to deal with as far as going out in the community. So, if you know someone that would like to train hands-on, no charge, how to video, how to edit, contact me or contact the Charlottesville Media Center and tell them that John wants to speak to you.
Thank you.
There you go. We also do something else that's color that is yoga teacher training. It's a nonprofit effort to bring more yogis of color into that space, that yoga space. So again, that invitation is open. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So anybody want to have business cards and exchange contact information, please do. So what we wanted to close on is I talked about is just get everybody's input on part of what's going forward is economics plays a part in growth across the board. Economics plays a part in keeping people in their passion. Because sometimes the passion, you run out, you gotta make life choices. Like, I love doing it, but I gotta feed my family, right? So we just want to know, and also being this 50th quote unquote anniversary of hip hop, we know that's a culture that has been capitalized on, that's been taken and commercialized. And when it first was commercialized, the creators did not benefit from it, right? So Saran and I, CIM, wants everybody to have a chance just, before we close the day to share on how what you've created has created lanes and economic possibilities, and what you see is still needed within our media ecosystem to be able to be financially lucrative for our media organizations.
Okay, so I just want to say I am a firm believer that whatever your God-given gift is, it's going to make room for you. Whether you can make it or not, it's going to open up doors that you never dreamed possible if you just step out there and like, you know what, I'm really good at X. I'm going to attempt to do Y. It's going to add together, and man, the possibilities are endless. So personally, I don't think, we should be so constrained with how much it's going to cost, how we're going to pay these bills. That's real. It's very real. But that's part of the problem in our communities of color. We limit ourselves and we reduce ourselves because we see what the person next to us has. And like, I could never have that. Guess what? You can have all of that and more if you use your gift and your talent, whatever that is. So I want to encourage you to just straight up do that. But in terms of what do you need more, I think we need to saturate the community more. So whatever that looks like, just being more visible, being where the people are. I think most of the people who probably watch CPA TV are, from what I can tell, are like our older generation. Guess what? They're still here. They still have influence. They still have a space. And so whatever that space is, infiltrate it, because it's gonna matter. Those seniors who might be watching our show, they're gonna influence people in their households, their grandkids, their communities, their churches, their workspaces. So whatever it is, let's just start talking more and just sharing more, wherever that is.
Yeah, so I'm gonna piggyback off you just a little bit. Yeah, talking about, because I want to say a little bit about myself, because I started, like I was saying, around 14. Had a lot of trials and tribulations in my younger, life, and then went to my adulthood. And it just always was rough. It was always going against the odds, and it's so easy to give up, especially as a Black community. Once things get a little, we like, all right, let me brush to the side. And that's kind of something I never did, mentally, that is. I always was moving, I always knew that I needed to keep going and stay relevant. That sometimes, I fell off a little bit, but for the most part, I stayed with it. So I just want to say that I think we just need to stay with it, because trials and tribulations are going to come. Stress is always going to be there. Problems are going to come, but we got to just keep pushing it. And Jim. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I thought Jim ain't no Jim. This ain't Jim in August. But anyway, all right. But yeah, so I think as far as the media, I think consistency. One thing as a Black community, we're getting better at, but consistency, myself included, it's just keep going, keep doing what you're doing. If it's not working, it's not. I'm not seeing the numbers that I think I should be seeing a lot of the time, but I know I'm making headway. I know I'm inching closer to whatever goals I have myself. And a lot of times, as Black people, we like, man, it ain't going away, so I'm done. It ain't. It's done. I can't do it no more. I'm 38. I'm 37. Or so we put limitations, and we do that a lot. So stop putting so many limitations on us and just go for it. That's all I'm saying.
I also wanted to, with moving forward, I wanted to say things like this, conversations like this, representation, that really does matter. We need more saturated events where we have different people speak, and have the representation, because, we don't know who we are inspiring as we sit up here and speak to you or whatever it is, and what you do within yourself. And as a community, I also agree with the consistency. A lot of times, Black people, we see one with more, and we think because they have more, we have less. And I operate in a mentality where if I got it, we all got it. If I make it, we all make it. And I remember one time I was home in South Carolina, and I really wanted to say this with moving forward. We in language as Black people and how we speak on ourselves in media. We always use the term crab in a bucket mentality, right? And we always say that Black people have a crab in a bucket mentality. But if you actually look, I was home, I saw this myself. When you actually look at crabs in a bucket, there's no crab trying to get out before the other. They're all really helping each other get out of that bucket. So ultimately, we don't have a crab in the bucket mentality, because that mentality really is when crowds feel barricaded, they all help each other get out. We don't do it in a consistent way because we feel like this person has more, so they don't need us. Just because somebody got more than you doesn't mean that they don't still need you. And I want us to get out of that mentality. It's like, that's not always necessarily true. And just because a person has less than you, it doesn't mean that that person can't come up with you. And so we have to really change the mindsets of how we speak in language, how we speak about ourselves as Black people in media, and staying consistent with doing these things. I'm really grateful for Vinegar Hill, and in my humble opinion, this is really good, for real, for Sarad and Charles to go and travel and tell our stories outside of Charlottesville, and that's why I love doing what I do for the city. Even though I'm not from here, I've been here 8 years. So I am also a representation of this city, so moving forward, just everybody just really remember that language, like how we speak on ourselves, moving forward in media and how we communicate.
I'll just end it real quick by saying, focus on the trap and not the cheese. Focus on your art form. The money will come. If you chase the money, you're gonna be trash at your craft, in my opinion. Yes, we all need resources and income, but you know, you work your regular workforce job and you feel like media is your passion, that's cool. But continue to work on that passion, continue to work on that craft, be open to constructive criticism. Don't take everything as hate. It's really not hate. It's gonna make you that much greater. Use that hate to piss you off to really dive into your craft. But if you get into any business just chasing money, you're gonna crash and burn. So focus on the trap, not the cheese. And man, if you want to be a part of like events or organizations where there's more people that look like you, look, I'm a part of two of them. Like first of all, at 7:30 tonight, you come to Thompson Park. The Thompson League got a championship game. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you come out to the Jefferson School at 6 a.m. for prolific run crew. You don't have to run, you can walk. Or you just get in the way like she do and take pictures, you know. And really good pictures, but she just be in my way. You know, 'cause I got places to go. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, just continue to stay together. Just focus on the trap, not the cheese. And that'll lead the way.
Is that everybody? That wanted to say something?
I just want to appreciate everybody being here, but, you know, I look out and I just wish it was like 20 times more people because of the impact that you all are making. And maybe we'll just claim that for next year, we'll have more in this house. You know, and you guys are mind blowing to me. I'm one of those ones that watches the old people. And I enjoy it. Anyway, thank you.
Just appreciative of all of like the wisdom of this crowd, right? This panel right here. I learned a lot today. Chase the trap, not the cheese. I love that. I mean, I couldn't say it a better way. You know, it's basically focus on the craft, and you know,
it's a trademark.
So I'm just appreciative of the whole panel, and Charles, you for leading the way, because I was like, I don't know what Charles got going on here, but Kalila, give him a raise. He might need a raise. And then Sabrina, he did good. But just appreciative to be able to be on the panel. Love what everybody is doing, want to support in every way. And I ain't mad at the cheese either, though. So y'all get your cheese, though. Focus on the trap, so focus on the crowd, make work for you, but definitely don't get your cheese out there, you know, because that's gonna help, especially if you're reinvesting, you know what I mean? Exactly. You reinvesting back into the community. I bet the people online didn't know we was gonna have a trap conversation. But yeah, just appreciate y'all. Thank you for taking the
Yeah, thank y'all. And please, everybody up here, if you don't remember their tags and their business names, please introduce yourself and follow. We talk about we really support and want our true stories told. Please follow every show, every media outlet that you see here. Please do, and you can find out more on how you can further support. Thanks Sabrina and Kalila again, and all the Cville. Thanks X Park. Thanks to the panelists. Yeah. Y'all enjoy the rest of the last day. Thank you.
I've never seen this. Oh, we gonna go that bad? That bad? Make sure
I'm sorry. No, you good. Oh, you ended the stream. We're doing it right now. I'm gonna keep this.
I got 14.